Hello, this is Joe Wilkerson with another edition of Old School Boxing Talk, live from quarantine. Ooh. Wow, little. Even though we're during this quarantine, a lot of news coming out in boxing, and some of it good, some of it bad. But this is. I've been following this sport all my life, participating in this sport all my life. The one thing that I don't like about boxing, and I'll say it, is the business of boxing. Um, the business of boxing and the diva attitude of today's fighters is ridiculous. Now, I mean, yeah, there's always been business in boxing. Let's not. I'm not going to say there hasn't been. There's always been business in boxing. The business of boxing is why Jack Dempsey never fought certain fighters. Um, the business of boxing has, stopped a lot of good fights from happening. But there was an era, somewhat in the '80s, the 15 round era, as I call it, where okay, you didn't get there were fights you didn't get like Leonard and Pryor. I don't know why that didn't happen. Um, some people say, well, Marvin Hagler never fought Mike McCallum, but at the time you got to look at where McCallum was and where Hagler was. And the reason Mike McCallum didn't get to fight with Marvin Hagler wasn't because Marvin Hagler was afraid of Mike McCallum. You got to remember, Marvin Hagler was promoted by Bob Arum, and Mike McCallum was with Don King. And um, Arum and King only got together to make super fights. So when their fighters got together, there was a big pile of money to be made. And and there was Mike McCallum, Marvin Hagler was on a big fight. Marvin Hagler wound up fighting John the Beast Mugabe, who was a top ranked fighter. And that was a fight that, in my opinion, a lot of people's opinion, took a lot out of Marvin Hagler. That fight took maybe 5, 6 fights off of Hagler's career. And that's when Sugar Ray Leonard decided to jump back in because he saw the damage that the Mugabe fight did to Hagler and said now's the time to take him. Because Leonard didn't want no part of Hagler at Hagler's best. Again, the business of boxing. One of the best businessmen in boxing was Ray Leonard. Leonard knew who he wanted to fight, when he wanted to fight him. And it's kind of funny that the same model that Ray Leonard used, during his career was criticized by people when Floyd Mayweather pretty much used the same thing. Picking, I'll fight you, but I'm going to fight you when I want to fight you. And people criticize Floyd for doing what Leonard did pretty much throughout the latter part of his career, from the Duran fight down. Before the Duran fight, Leonard was about fighting anybody. After the Duran fight, Leonard realized, okay, we're not going to fight anybody. Excuse me, I think before the Duran fight, if Pryor could have got that fight before Leonard lost to Duran, then I think that would have been a good fight. I don't know who wins it. I really don't. But it wouldn't have been worth, by the time that fight was worth money, which is after Pryor beat Aguayo. Now Pryor's a star in his own right. Leonard was on to different things. I think by the time the fight happened, Leonard was in and out of boxing at that time. And Tommy Hearns had already jumped up to 154 pounds. And, Aaron Pryor was a shell of himself because Aaron Pryor was now, he was messing with cocaine before the Aguayo fight, but after the Aguayo fight, he was really fucked up. Um, and I mean, there's reason those fights didn't happen. I mean, like I said, Mike McCallum didn't get to fight with Marvin Hagler. One, because Mike McCallum wasn't a known commodity, and two, he was with Don King. And the two big promoters at that time were Don King and Bob Arum. And you had main events was like their number 3 promoter, like under the radar, but they were not, and by the time Bob Arum was going to make sure if Marvin Hagler was going to go out, he's going to go out to somebody within that I control. I'm not going to have a King guy beat him. I don't even know if McCallum would have beat Marvin Hagler. To be honest with you. Um, Now I'm not going to. That's taking my bias of because I always believe Marvin Hagler is the greatest middleweight champion of all time. I love Marvin Hagler, Matthew Saad Muhammad, Marvin Hagler, Salvador Sanchez, Roberto Duran. Those are my top. Those are my guys. Um, And when I talk about these guys, I try to take my biasness out of the pictures. Like I was on the Roberto Duran fan club post on Facebook, and someone asked a question, said, they posed a question, could Oscar De La Hoya beat Roberto Duran? And I'm like, no, Oscar can't beat Duran. And I said, I put a post up there that a motivated Duran is a very dangerous Duran. And someone kind of got upset, but that's why I don't like doing these group things, because you get these things that people really don't know shit about boxing, and they get on there and they want to, and when you go to give them an explanation, oh, he's just too long. Well, if your attention span is so short, then shut the fuck up. But no, in my opinion, and I'm going to go to this, I'm going to explain myself here, my page, my time. When I look at Oscar De La Hoya, I respect the hell out of Oscar De La Hoya. I do. I respect Oscar. Fought everybody, and he wasn't afraid to fight people. I think the guys Oscar should have fought, but he didn't fight, when he was under Bob's thumb, because Bob Arum was always going to protect his golden goose. Trust and believe, that's where the business of boxing comes in. The best don't fight the best at the right time. It's business. I hate the business of boxing, but it is what it is. In my opinion, Oscar, let's go through the weight classes Oscar fought at. 130. Well, Duran was never a 130 pounder. But at 130, if Oscar's at 130, Duran's at 135, Duran fought it. They fight. Duran crushes him at 135. Oscar fought at 140, Duran didn't fight at 140. Duran went to 147. So, again, between 130 and 135, Oscar versus Duran, Duran smashes Oscar. Between 130 and 140, I'm going to go 130, 140, Duran smashes Oscar. Duran's the greatest lightweight of all time. At that, Duran, in that weight class, crushes Oscar. 147, the Duran that beat Leonard beats the shit out of Oscar. Hands down, Oscar has no shot at it, because Oscar was not... Duran beats Oscar at 146. Oscar wasn't the kind... Oscar didn't have the skills to keep or the power to keep Duran off of him. So Duran beats Oscar at 147. 154, again, Duran beats Oscar at 154. Hands down, Duran. You look at what Duran did to Davey Moore, who's I'm not going to say Oscar's more accomplished than Davey Moore, as far, but Duran beats Oscar. 160, again, Oscar struggled with Felix Sturm. Got a decision against Felix Sturm he didn't deserve. Felix Sturm beat Oscar's ass. But they gave the decision to Oscar. Felix Sturm never came back and fought outside Germany again the rest of his career after that, which led Oscar to get knocked out by Bernard Hopkins. Now, Duran, Iran Barkley. Come on. Duran, Oscar, Duran. Duran beats Oscar. So as much as I respect Oscar De La Hoya. Don't get me wrong. The shit he did outside the ring, but I don't judge fighters on what they do outside the ring. I judge fighters what they did inside the ring. Inside the ring, Oscar versus Duran is Duran all day. All the weight classes they fought in together around, Duran beats Oscar. And just you have to really know Duran and what Duran was capable of when Duran. And the fight comes down to when Duran fought another. Oscar's a star. And Oscar would have been a star in any era. And Duran gets up for those fights. Oscar's a pretty boy. Duran gets up for the pretty boys. Because Duran wanted to crush the pretty boy. Duran hated pretty boys. So yeah, I'm just saying Oscar would have been formidable at 154 and 160. Oscar would have been a formidable opponent for Duran. He went some rounds with Duran. I think Duran stops Oscar late. But at 130, from 130 to 140, Duran kills Oscar. That's Duran's wheelhouse when he was lightweight champion of the world. That's his wheelhouse. There, because Duran 135, King 135 pounders. At 135, Duran kills Oscar. Now there was a good fight that someone mentioned that didn't happen. Alexis Arguello, why Arguello didn't fight Duran. It was simply, you gotta remember when Arguello won the featherweight title, Arguello took some time off. He won the WBA featherweight championship, defended it a bunch of times, and then took some time off from boxing. And I believe it was when Arguello vacated that WBA featherweight title, one of the men he'd beaten defending it, Eusebio Pedrosa, turned around and won that belt. After Eusebio Pedrosa won the belt, from, after Arguello had vacated it. I don't know if he wanted a fight or two later, but he wanted Pedrosa had been beaten by Arguello earlier, and then, when Arguello retired, vacated the belt, took some time away from boxing. Pedrosa wanted to win the WBA featherweight title. During this time, when Arguello had come back at 130 pounds and won the 130-pound championship, when Arguello was making noise about fighting Duran, well, Duran had two fights on the table. Stay at 135 and fight Arguello for X amount of dollars, or move up to 147 and fight Sugar Ray Leonard for bigger money. Remember, Duran was a king fighter. Don King got him bigger. Don King said, "Look, we can fight Alexis Arguello. It's going to be for, little money. It's going to be for this, but we can fight Ray Leonard for this." And this gives you, and that's when championships actually meant something. So Duran said, "Fuck, let me get Leonard. Leonard's a bigger fighter, bigger name, it was just it's a matter of time that fight didn't happen." Arguello, by the time he got back in the game, got himself established, whatever, by the time that fight came about, the Leonard fight was also in Duran's, wheelhouse. And everybody knew Duran was struggling to make 135. But the Leonard fight was there. And that was a bigger money fight, bigger stage. Duran took that in a bigger challenge. Duran took that fight. So that's the reason the Arguello fight didn't happen. Because, just happened that the two offers were at the same time. There's more money with Leonard and more prestige with the Leonard fight. I believe Duran would have beat Arguello, and it would have just been, okay, Duran crushes another, whatever. But that's why that fight didn't happen. That was all about timing, and the money to fight Leonard was bigger than the money to fight Arguello. And honestly, it made more sense to go up and fight Leonard, who's at 147, because Duran, here's the thing with Duran. You had the option. If you went up to 147 and fought Leonard, if you lost, you could always come back down to 135 and fight Arguello. That fight was going to be there. And, if you won, oh well. As we know, Duran won and never came back to 135, But that was the thinking going in. Let's take this big money fight. It's a second title in another weight class, a legitimate championship, lineage and everything's right there. Let's get that there. I mean, there was talk of fighting Leonard. Look, here's the deal. Duran was planning on moving up. Duran had his eye on Pipino Cuevas, who was a WBA welterweight champion at the time. And he had his eye on Wilfred Benitez. Benitez wound up losing to Leonard. Well, now I got to put Leonard in that equation. So Duran, while he was champion, was eyeing both those welterweight champions. Duran, I don't think ever had plans to fight at 140. So he was looking past 140 and looking right to 147. Duran was like, I'm moving up, but I'm looking for the big money fights. By the time the Arguello fight came along, the Leonard fight was there. So the way Duran looked at it, or Duran's management looked at it, we move up and grab this big fight with Leonard. If we win, we're golden. If we lose, well, we come back here and fight Arguello. And then we can fight these other guys at 140. If we lose, we can just rebuild, fight Arguello, do some more work at 135, go to 140, go crush those guys there, build our way, and come back. If we win, well, we don't need to worry about that. And that's what happened. Duran went up to 147, took the risk. Risk, reward. Duran went up there, took the risk. He risked it all for greatness and won. Now, yes, the Leonard rematch, okay, yeah, things didn't go. Sad night in boxing. But it happened. It is what it is. But the moral story is this. There are great fights in boxing don't happen. A lot of them, like I posted up one about, on my last video was why we didn't get James Toney versus Bernard Hopkins. I always thought that was been a good fight. And I wonder why those two guys never ever hooked it up. But But it is, there's some great fights that in the past. See, I'm going to say it like this. I am particularly biased toward my 15 round guys. I am. I make no distinction about it. I'm not going to sugarcoat and lie to you. My 15 round guys were better than all these 12 round guys together. My 15 round guys, I believe, would crush these 12 round boys. Um, and and it takes a lot for me to even take a guy and compare him to one of my think he could hang. I look at a lot of these fighters today, um, and I don't see many of them that could have really hung with those guys. I mean, Donald Curry. I love Donald Curry. I think Donald Curry would have been Donald Curry at 147. Donald Curry was a 15 round guy. Um, he was there right before the cutoff. So Donald Curry kind of makes it. Um, but Donald Curry would have been fantastic in the 15 round era. Vander Holyfield, a 15 round guy. Why I like the real dude, a 15 round guy. Mike Tyson was not a 15 round guy. You know, Holyfield fought 15 rounds. If you never fought, see, my thing is that if you've never, the guys that fought 15 rounds, they're here with me. They're in my heart. They're the guys. Those are warriors, great fighters. If you fought a 15 rounder, these guys have fought these 12 rounders. I'm like, oh. And here's the bullshit about the 12 round bullshit. They say, oh, we cut the rounds from 15 to 12 for fighter safety. Well, okay, I see fighters getting in fights and fighters are still dying. Yet you took three championship rounds already, distinguished championships that really set the sport back. You set the sport back. For what? For what you call fighter safety? And fighters are still dying? Let me explain something to you. Boxing is a business, is a sport where whether it's the first round or the last round, you can get killed in boxing. When your object of your sport is to punch the other guy in the head to render him unconscious, there's a good risk that there's a shot that's going to come down that's going to, do some damage. Whether it's pro boxing or amateur boxing, fighters die. It's the nature of the beast. It's what separates boxing from every other sport because every time you step into that ring, there's a chance you might not step out. And every time you step out of that ring, you're happy that you got through there. And the pure joy of going mano a mano, me against you. You bring what you got, I bring what I got. Me against you. That pure adrenaline. That's why, like, fighters will talk shit before a fight, but after the fight, there's a lot of hugging and, there's a camaraderie. Because what we say before the fight is to build the fight. Once we get in there, we tussle, we throwing hands. After the fight, there's nothing but love because we both made it out of here. All right, if we go to decision, we both made it out of here. If I knock you out, okay, I want to make sure you're okay before we step out of here. It's a warrior, it's a brother, it's a warriorhood. Um, it's just the greatest sport ever. Greatest sport going today. I can't wait till we get back to it. Excuse me. One of the things people talk about boxing without a crowd. While we're in this pandemic state, we've seen wrestling without a crowd. It sucks. I like wrestling, and it really sucks without a crowd. I think the crowd is a big part of what makes sports. Um, so let's get this shit taken care of because football season's coming up, and I thought this shit would be done by Mother's Day. I was wrong, but goddamn it, you fuck around with football season, NCAA, and there's no Alabama playing football, and there's no Dallas Cowboys. Well, the NFL's already said they're kicking off as normal. So, look, people, we gotta get this pandemic bullshit taken care of. Because football season coming up, and I need boxing to get back in the swing of things. I need my throwdowns. Um, and a couple things before I jump off here. Okay, there's the in the next big batch of fights in this for these 12 round boys that I'd like to see them do. Um, I have some of these 12 round fighters I really like. I like Jermell Charlo. I like Jamal Charlo. I like both the Charlo brothers. I think these guys have dog in them. I think these guys want to be the best. Unfortunately, with the Charlos is this: the Charlos are in an era where the best don't want to fight the best. The Charlos are in an era where it is money ball. It is money fight. Does it make enough money? I think that the stories I'm hearing about the zone being in some financial difficulties could really stop a lot of that. Put Jamal Charlo's moving up. Charlo's moving up he's talking about moving up to 168 to fight Dave Benavides. Benavides, I'm sorry, to fight Dave Benavides. And that's a damn good fight. But there's also a good fight. There's also a good fighter named Caleb Plant sitting right there. Why hasn't the Plant Those guys have history. Those guys have history. They got a